All right, I'm gonna stop share now because bye-bye, Dave. That's all we get. It is 8:30. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so I'm sure we're gonna have lots more hopping on, except it is the What Moves Her event this morning, so we may not have as many from the Sheets world. Okay, so let's start first with we've been talking the last 2 weeks about the market, the overall market, right? What's happening in the market? What are we seeing? What's that doing? Today, we're going to actually dig into the questions your clients might be asking and how are we going to answer those, right? So now we've learned what we've learned. How are we going to answer those questions? So, where I want you guys to start is to tell me what questions you still have about the overall market. And remember, this is a super safe space. Okay, no dumb questions on this screen, because if you're thinking it, someone else is definitely too. Okay, so anyone have yes, and thank you.
Yeah, Julie, and this might not be our wheelhouse, but I was just thinking, um, how long, because you know the saying about marry the house, date the rate.
Date the
How
rate.
long
Yep.
do people have to, is there a certain period with a new mortgage? Do you have to wait a certain amount of time to then refinance?
Oh, that's a great question, and that is for your lender.
Okay,
I
got
think
it.
it
I was just
depends on
wondering.
what, yeah, that's a great conversation for them to have. And a lot of lenders are having that conversation right now. Okay, you guys. So remember that if they're concerned about their rate, there are lots of options from number one, buying it down, right? Number two, refinancing when the rates go down again. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, gang, though, as you ask these questions, is jump you back to the slides that might have you show someone and ask questions around this. Okay. So, Anne, now you're on point. Sorry, you get to be my person. Okay. So, Anne, I know you're a little concerned about the interest rates and you're hoping that you can refinance, right? Once the rates go down a little. Okay. So,
Yes.
what I really want to show you, however, though, is what rates have done and will continue to do. Okay, so as you see the screen in front of you, oh, sorry, that's not the right one. There we go. Okay, so as you see this screen in front of you, it kind of shows you what's happened to interest rates over, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so sorry. I suck at this because my mouse like moves the things when I don't mean to. Um, so what this shows you is what rates have kind of done over the history of rates, right? So we saw this crazy low because of the pandemic. And so now they're trying to figure out, the Fed's trying to figure out where we stop here. The average is around 7.7. I don't see us getting necessarily that high, although we're getting closer. However, I'm not sure how much lower these rates are going to go, even if they do go lower. Okay. So I guess what my important question would be for you, Anne, if rates don't go down, would you still want to purchase a home?
I sure do.
Okay. 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 So you guys are going to see this way to have a conversation all the way through. Okay. Because here's what we do oftentimes. This is the biggest thing I want you guys to understand from this. Even when talking about the market, we tend to jump and answer questions that we haven't even asked them. Okay. So the first thing, you guys hear me say this over. Ask more questions. Okay. So when I'm going to tell you guys how to talk about this stuff, the first thing you're going to do is ask them a question about why they're asking. Right. So my question to Anne was, okay, here's the situation. Now let's go to worst case scenario. So let's say you can't get that. Right now, are you still interested in buying a home? Okay. Did that help you?
Yes.
Okay. And pulling out those pages, right? And you can even say to them, okay, so now that you've seen this, where do you think we might end up? I mean, this is what everyone else is looking at, right? And then you could go through, okay, so there's 7.18. I'm just going to use what's on the slide currently today. And let's say they did go down as far as 6. What's the savings? What's the difference? How could we potentially budget you differently? You know what I mean? So that we're not worried about that difference. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Great question,
Julie.
Anne. Yes.
So I'll follow up on what Ann just asked, and her answer as she was being her client was, you asked, are you still looking? And she said, of course, yes. What I'm struggling with and wasting time with my buyers in that they're kind of like, well, we're just kind of, we definitely are, we're looking, but we're kind of waiting, and they're not on the sidelines, but I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels, wasting time. I know the A, B, and C buyer, but I'm struggling with ones that are on the sidelines, but are really thinking that they're not.
Okay. So this is going to go back to pre-qual. Okay. So Dan, you got to stay off mute if you can. I know you're driving. So tell me, okay, so you be the buyer now. All right. All right. So Dan, I understand that you're really, really wanting to buy. You said that you guys would like to be in a house by December. My concern is we may be running out of time, but you tell me, what is it that's keeping you from being ready to write an offer on a property today?
Well, I mean, I think the rate, I mean, we've been looking for a while, and when the rates
Yeah.
were lower, we could afford more. And then now it's just, we're really tight, but yet I
Yeah.
still want to be in a house that's, $700,000.
Yeah, I get that. Well, and unfortunately, that's the purpose of raising rates. So when they raise rates, they want it to be tighter and for us to rethink about how much house we can afford. So it kind of seems to me like we've got two options. Number one, do you think we can find what you want and stay within your budget? Meaning we've got to be closer to 600,000. So if we had to buy
Yeah.
something for 600,000, do you think you could still find what you want, and would that fit in your budget?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah. Oh
I don't
man.
know.
Yeah, I totally get that. So what I want you guys to do is really think about what your long-term goal is for this property. Okay? So what is your goal for this property?
Well, we're really tight now as far as we need more
Mm-hmm.
space. Our kids are growing, and we want a basement for the space, but we kind of missed our window, and
Yeah.
just
Well,
we need to move.
right. Well, and that's the thing. Unfortunately, if you need to move, I'm not sure that window's coming back. That was a hiccup in the rates and everything else that we had because of a pandemic. And unless you see a pandemic coming, I'm just not sure that's ever going to happen again. So I'm not sure we're making the right decision if we're thinking about buying because of a rate versus buying because of the space your family needs. So which one would you say is the most important? Is a low rate the most important, or is the space your family needs?
Well, I mean, I think both, but
Yeah.
financially, if we can't do it, we can't do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And that unfortunately is the bottom line. So if you can't do it, I think we know that answer. Now, there likely will be a market where you can do that again. Okay. So the best thing about this is that I'm now going to be able to watch. Okay. So let's talk in detail. So I'd go down that road, right? What do you want your budget to be? Where do we need to be? Where do these rates need to go back to so that you feel like you can purchase your ideal home? And then I think maybe we should put our search on hold for now. Let me keep a really close eye on the market and these rates, and then I'll let you know when your market comes around that it's possible for you to be able to purchase. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. And Julie, I
Okay.
guess, should I get them? I mean, should I have them? I think you need to speak with your lender and figure out where the rate needs to be for you to be able to afford it. I mean, is that a direct conversation I should have like that?
Direct conversation. You guys, I'm sorry. We've got sirens going off, so my guy is jumping in there too. He'll stop in just a minute. Yeah, that's absolutely the conversation. And here's the other piece of this, buyer's agents, is if they talk to their lender and their lender says they cannot go over 7.18, you have to write that in the purchase agreement. That is the reason for the clause that says interest rate not to exceed, because that's what they can afford. Okay. So yes, talk to your lender and find out what the rates are going to do. That's number one. Number two, you need to go home tonight and really sit down with your budget, right? And really look at, is there anything else you can do? Is there anything as a family you guys could do to maybe free up some money, knowing that this space is so important for you guys? And then if we come back around that, yeah, it's just not the right market for you to be able to purchase in because of the rates currently, then yeah, we probably should just wait. Okay.
Great
So that's
stuff,
the
Julie.
two
Thank
things. You're welcome. I'd send them home with homework, right? Here's your homework. And you have to pull them back around to why are they buying, right? They're buying for space, but they're also buying for generational wealth, right? So you also have to kind of get them thinking about that too, right? The rate is not going to affect the generational wealth, right? It affects your monthly payments currently, but if you're that tight, yeah, we probably need to stop. Okay, awesome questions. Awesome questions. Who else? Keep throwing them out there. And don't be afraid that I'll make you be the buyer if you ask a question. Because I
just
might.
quick comment on the conversation you just had.
Yeah.
In the example, like the $700,000 house, the pandemic $700,000 house was a pre-pandemic $450,000 house that didn't do anything to their house because they were getting 200, 250, 300,000 more. Now that they're in their quote unquote afford it stage and they can only afford a $350,000 house, that's the house that the sellers can't believe they're going to get that for it. They don't believe that's what it's worth. And they'll do anything that needs to be done to it to get it to sell. So you're really getting I've been telling my buyers, you're getting a better deal because people that are selling their $450,000 house for $700,000 couldn't care less.
Yes. Yes.
Now when people are like, well, what do I have to do to it to get it to sell for the number, that the listing agent, that you just gave me? And you're like, these 5 things. They'll happily make those repairs pre-listing if they can really get that for it. Like, I don't know. I've just been telling them, like, be leery with like what you think your budget is and what you think these $700,000 houses are, because I think buyers were not tricked, but I think they were not understanding that you're not getting a true $700,000 house. You're getting a $450,000 house with $700,000 tag on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, great point. And here's the other point, right? If they're taking advantage of these prices going up on their purchase, they've also taken advantage of the same appreciation on their sale, right? So that's the other thing to talk about. If your house now just kind of levels out and will always just sell for this, it's not like you can, they might be at the max of their value right now to be able to sell it. And they need to look at that too. How much have you made on your current house that you can put forward that won't affect the rate, that the rate doesn't affect at all, right? Because that's your cash you're putting down. Good points. Thank you, Cassie. Connie, absolutely. I'm going to put in the chat box. Connie asked if I can share the slides. And slides, recordings of all 3 will be on my link tree, hopefully this afternoon. That's my goal today. So slides will be up as soon as we're off, and then recordings of the last 2 will be on my link tree. So yes, you guys will be able to see all the slides and go from there. And then absolutely rip and duplicate those slides. Okay. Take whatever you want off of them. You guys can copy and paste. You can grab the whole screen, whatever you want with them. So they're yours to use. Okay. What other questions before we get into the questions I think we're hearing? No one? You sure? All right. Awesome. So now let's jump in. Oh, let me get my PowerPoint back so I don't make you guys dizzy going through everything. All right. So
hey, Julie.
We are, yes.
Sorry, real fast.
No.
Hi, where do you go every day to see what the rate is? The current rate? You said today it's 7.18. Where'd you find that?
I didn't. I pulled it off a slide. Yeah, I used the number that was on the average slide I had up in front.
Okay.
All right. But that's a great question. I mean, you guys, rates are changing all the time. They come out at 10 a.m. Okay, so if you ask your lender for today's rate before 10 a.m., they have no idea. They can only tell you yesterday's rate. Okay, so 10 a.m. they're going to come out. All the lenders are going to do what they do with that and then be able to tell you something by 10:30, 11 o'clock. Okay, so it used to be, and I bet we're going back to this. I'd say 8 years ago, we would get daily emails from our lenders that said, what's the rate today? What's the rate today? What's the rate today? So every day around 11, you'd start getting hammered with rates coming in for the daily rate. And I think that will probably start happening because it makes a difference so much right now with what these rates are doing every day. Okay, so I wish I had a great place, because let's go back to the general source, right? Let's go back to how rates are created. The Fed sets a rate that comes out at 10 a.m. and then every lender has to look at it and say, okay, so that's what we get it for. Now, what are we going to sell it for? And that's the difference in the Fed rate and the interest rate. And every lender is different. Okay, so every lender is going to upcharge it differently. Every lender is going to have different plans they offer. Every lender is it's going to depend on what your credit score is, how strong of a buyer you are, depending on what rate they're willing to give you. So any lender is also going to say that's a really loaded question. Okay, so Susan, let's take it back to you. Was that just for your knowledge, or are buyers asking you, like, where can I go to see the rates?
Yeah, it's pretty much for my knowledge, but
Okay.
people say, well, gosh, what are the rates now? And I'm like,
Yeah. So Connie just put up Mortgage News Daily is what she usually uses. So pretty much if you can ask someone, right, check in with your lender, ask them to send them to you Mondays, whatever you need. Yep, go to Mortgage News Daily, and that'll give you a guide. And really that's kind of all you need to know, right? Is where has it been in the last 3 to 5 days? And if anything crazy is happening, you need to call your lender regardless. And they will too. Does that help?
yes,
Okay.
it does.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, these are good. These are good. Let's make sure we get to yours, because your questions are more important than what I think too. So, okay. So again, right, what would you say is about what Julie says? Okay, so I just want to put it that way, right? This is what I've used forever to answer these questions. Okay, so change it, use what you want, absolutely. And I'm going to remind everyone, anyone who wasn't on right in the beginning, what we tend to do is answer questions and not ask questions. Okay, so as we go through this, I'm going to tell you what I say, and then I'm going to tell you what follow-up questions you can ask to really get to what they're wanting to know. Okay, so let's start with this first one. How's the market? How many people get that question all the time? How's the market? Right? That's the most common one. And what I would always say is, oh my God, it's always so exciting, right? It's just constantly here, there, everywhere, constantly moving. And I love it because that's what keeps me on my toes. What do you like to keep an eye on in the market? Okay, so what I got to know is, what are you talking about? The market includes rates, it includes appreciation, it includes mortgage payments, it includes what rent's doing, right? There are so many things that encompass the market, right? And that's what you got to get them thinking about too. Guys, most of the time when they're asking, they're just asking as a conversation starter with you, because they don't know how else to ask you, how's your business, right? Without coming straight out and asking, how's your business? So, they're kind of wanting to know that. So the second question I'd ask, or kick out the first one, right? So I just always used to ask, what do you like to watch, right? What do you think about? What are you curious about specifically? Or are you thinking about getting in the market? Okay, so tell them how you feel. And a lot of agents, you hear it in other scripting things, how's the market? Great, it's great, right? So it always is great. I mean, no matter what side of the fence you're on, or you're on both, it's great for someone at all times. So, and my word was always exciting. It's always so exciting. Like, always things are changing, they're doing things. I got to stay on my toes. And I love it. That's why I love it, because real estate is changing every day, which is fun. Okay. Questions about that? Or are we missing the question? I don't want to answer these. And you'd be, but my people say this or this or this afterwards. So if you're feeling any of that, I want you to say it to me. Okay. So the next thing they might ask, besides just how's the market, is what's the current state of the market, right? I'm in Indiana. Okay. So, and most of you probably live in sought after areas. Okay. If you don't, that's another conversation we need to have. But, you know, I always say, man, I mean, it's so awesome. Indy's such a sought after area, and things are kind of finally starting to level out, which is a lot less stress on buyers and sellers. So hopefully that'll mean that, you know, it's a lot less stress on me. But where do you live? Are you thinking about moving? Okay, because that's what we need to know. If they're asking about the local market, you got to know their local market, right? So you need to kind of give an overarching, here's what's happening, here's what, and guys, your one statement, right, that you need about what's happening in the market. So last year it might have been, yeah, I mean, appreciation is going up. Lots of sellers are taking great advantage of it. Where do you live? Are you thinking about moving? Okay. Or, right, use this one that I said, things are finally starting to level out. And what that's doing is less stress on everybody. So that's what I like, right? That's the positive of right now and things doing this, is that people tend to be a little less stressed. Unless they're Dan's buyers that can't afford it and can't move, then they're still stressed. Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, how are property values trending lately? Still steadily going up, right? The pandemic made them go up super quickly. They were jumping at like 12% a month. I just know that because I was watching it. 12% a month appreciation. And the level back has got us back down to about 3 to 4% a year. Okay, Indiana, we tend to lean more to 3%. Nationally, we tend to lean more to 4%. Okay, so those are just things I know. And then I would say, are you curious about the value of your specific home? Okay, because that's likely why they're asking. Okay, so give them the general, here's what's happening. We're seeing things level out, things are still going up, right? Now, what's the most important question we've got to know? And Ann, this is kind of what I thought you were going to start with, is how long does a person need to be in a home in order to make money? Okay, this has nothing to do with interest rates. This is all appreciation. Okay, and what I usually say is if commission 7%, taxes are another 1%, and then you've got expenses of another 1%, right? They're between 7 and 9% on their expenses to sell. If in Indiana, we go up at least 3% every year, how many years do they need to be in that house before they're actually making money? Yep, 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years. Okay. So the big question is always, how long do you intend to stay in this property? Okay. How long do you intend to stay in this property? Because if you sell before, you're just naturally going to be potentially upside down and have to bring money to closing. Okay. So that's a whole different conversation. So 3 to 4% is what you can pretty much count on. And then getting them dug into why they're actually moving. Okay, here you go, Susan. Here's when the consumer asks you, what's the current interest rate? Up and down every day right now. They're honestly trying to figure out where rates can settle for a more level economy. So for a while, we're just going to kind of keep doing this until they can figure out this balance of what interest rate will level out. So are you considering buying a home? Okay. Let's go to the next one. Oh, that's a 1. That current interest rate went to a 1. Okay. Dan, here's your question. What if I can't afford my mortgage? There's a market for everyone at the exact right time for them. Although a mortgage is a huge expense, it's also one of the rare investments where you can make consistent money year after year after year, right? Have you done a detailed budget lately? Okay, bring them back to why are you getting a mortgage, right? Here's the other thing you can always throw out to people who can't afford it. is there any way you have cash, right? You have more cash to put down and then you don't even have to worry about the mortgage, right? There's always that option. Okay. Another one we're getting right now. What's the inventory like? Are there plenty of homes? And my response is we're still seeing great buyer demand. Okay. Although resale homes are starting to slow, new construction is really making up the difference, right? We saw that in our slide. So resale is going down, new construction's making up the difference. And hopefully this is going to help level everything out. Are you thinking about buying or selling? Right? I like that question for any of it. We're just going to assume they're asking because they're in the market. So now we want to know which position are they in, or both. Okay. Are there any specific market conditions I should be aware of? Okay. This is the one that I wanted to be able to answer for you guys, because this is one that we'll get down to kind of the nitty gritty, right? Currently, our most challenging aspect is that rates are all over the board. Until everything levels out, it's going to make all of us watch a little closer as we negotiate transactions. Are you thinking about getting in the market? Okay. So that, I personally, Julie Downey says, is our most challenging aspect with this market right now, which I think you guys are, I'm hearing that a lot, right? So to just let people, yeah, they're just figuring things out. And when the government is trying to figure things out, it just makes us have to keep an eye on things a lot more. And that's exactly the state they're in right now, is figuring it out. Okay, what's the outlook for real estate market in the near future? Okay, real estate is always strong, you guys. So you can pretty much answer that. It's really strong. Houses typically tend to keep going up in value. They're working to level out the cost of the mortgages currently. It's still a great time to either buy or sell. Which one are you thinking about doing? I missed my question on that one, but you guys get it, right? And then ask a question. Okay. Here's the big ones. Is now a good time to sell? Do you need to? If you need to move, you're motivated to, and you have things, and yes, it's time to sell. Okay. That's always, gang. That never, ever, ever changes. Okay. If they need to sell, it's the right time. It's a good market. They need to buy, it's a good market, right? If they need to do both, it's a break even. So it doesn't matter. Whatever's happening on the seller side is happening on the buyer side. So, right, you're going to get the same thing. So if you're doing both, you're going to take advantage of the high prices, and you're also going to pay the higher prices, right? But you made it on the other end, and vice versa. If houses are selling low, you're also buying low. So you're making it up. Either way, it's a even. Okay. And then the question I ask is, where are you hoping to go? Okay. And should we meet? Right? Let's set up the appointment. They're asking is now's a good time to sell. You say, yeah, let's sit down and dig into it. Okay, let's just meet and talk about your goals. Let's talk about, yes, it's always a great time to sell, depending on, right, if this market is right for you or not. Okay, same thing. Is now a good time to buy? Yes. Okay, big question. We went back to that. How long do you plan to stay there? Right? How long do you plan to stay there? If you're going to stay there enough time, if this is a quick turnaround, it may never be a good time to buy, honestly, because you will have some expenses. And then I'm not sure how many people are actually asking this question directly. Should I rent or should I buy? Totally depends on your long-term plans. Okay. I wish I could answer that a little more clearly, but when people are asking that, you really have to dig into, right? What are they hoping to get out of a buy? Are they wanting to make money? If they are, then yes, buying is always better, right? Because you're going to make money on your investment. Renting is not, right? The whole thing we're seeing is that as property prices and rates go up, so are rent. You guys, they're just following the exact same thing. And investors are really pinched right now. It's gotten so expensive for investors to carry properties that they're having to just increase these rents astronomically. So get them back to, what are you looking to accomplish? What are your goals for the purchase? And then let's meet and really sit down with, is renting or buying the right choice for you? And gang, that's your job. Sometimes you're going to have to tell people renting is probably your right choice. right? Because we're representing their best interests. Okay, awesome. So quick thing before we get off. Any of you that don't have last names, I'd love for you to either put them in the chat box, tell me what your last name is if it's not on your thing here, and then ask me questions. So I will stick around. It's 9 o'clock. If you guys need to go. If anyone has outstanding questions, ask them. And then we can also come back next week and wrap it up. All right, Susie.
I don't know if it's an outstanding question, but this is what I get all the time, and I was hoping for maybe another spin on handling this objection.
Okay.
So, this is what I get. I'm just going to wait until the rates go down.
All right. Okay.
So I have a couple of thoughts on that
myself. Can I role play? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to be the agent and let me be the buyer? Or do you want me to be the agent?
You be the agent.
Okay.
Just because I kind of want a different answer in case.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's different.
Absolutely. Okay. So, Susie. So you're saying you kind of want to wait until rates go down. What are you hoping? What do you want the rate to be before you'll want to buy something?
Well, thanks for asking. It just seems like I can afford more of a house if the interest rates are lower. The interest rate just really makes my overall monthly mortgage payment higher. And that's what I'm trying to avoid.
Okay, I got it. So do you know what that rate would have to be? How much lower would it need to be to make you feel comfortable? That's a big one, Susie, because how many of them have no idea? They just feel like it's high, right? So we got to get to the nitty gritty. Like, what does it need to be? Where does the rate have to be to fit your budget? Okay, so go ahead. So I asked that.
Well, not really. I haven't talked to my lender specifically about that or asked him that question, but if I come to an answer, I just feel like.
Let me ask you this. Yeah. So is the monthly payment the most important thing we need to watch for?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. And are you willing to buy maybe a house that's a little less price in order to still get a house at the interest rate and stay within your budget?
Well, I just feel like, the home that we're in now, it pretty much suits our needs. So the demand isn't quite there for us to move if we're going to kind of be downgrading or settling on something that's really not worth moving into.
Yeah, I totally get that. And honestly, I never want you to settle. So it kind of seems like if you feel like you're settling for a house, maybe this isn't the right market. Right. And I know I always hate to say that might be the answer, you guys, but that's our job, right? If they can't buy or shouldn't buy or really are this worried about it, we have to coach them out of, to maybe wait. But Susie, ask more questions around what are they really getting at with this rate? Why is the rate the concern? And then show them what interest rates are doing and say, what do you see happening that I don't, that shows that rates might go down?
Okay.
Right? I mean, this is just me speaking. You guys, if we see below 6 again, I think that's a bonus, right? So kind of try to tell them that, if we level out at this, can you still buy? Does that still fit your budget? And try to ask more questions around that. Did that help, Susie? Did I get it?
It does
for you?
Yes.
Okay.
That, and then the other that you mentioned, selling high, you're selling high, so you're buying high. It's a break even though.
Yeah,
we can both agree with that.
It's a break even. And right, you're probably at your highest point because we've just appreciated 12% in the last 2 years. So what's more important, that interest rate or making the most money you can? And then why don't we talk about a buy down, right? What is the number and how can we get there? So if absolutely knows the answer, then we need to get creative. And in this market, it may mean that since we have to be creative, since we need some help from sellers, we may need to wait a week or two and only look at houses that have been sitting for a little bit. Because in this market, in the first 24 to 48 hours, we're still seeing really strong offers come in. So if it's going to sell then, and we need to ask for a buy down, it's likely we're going to get beat every time. We can try it once, but it's likely we'll get beat every time. And then in that case, I think we better pull back, wait for some houses that maybe aren't selling in the first 48 hours, and then go writing our offers with a seller buy down on the rate. Okay. So the other thing, ask questions, give them options. Okay. That's what everyone likes is you always have, and that's why I throw in the cash, right? And there's always the option of cash. I don't know if that's an option. Do you have a family member you could borrow from? They can carry your note, you know, they'll give you whatever interest rate you want. Okay. All right. Awesome. Gil
Julie.
and JN, I'd love for you guys to write in the chat box your names. Yes. Hi, Alexia.
Hi, question. So when you
Yep.
talk about like digging into the budget, I know you've mentioned that quite a few times throughout the whole
Yeah.
series. What exactly are you asking them and what are you using
Yeah.
to advise them? So if they do sit down with you and you're going through their budget, what does that look like?
Okay. Great question. And I'm going to get you back to this. Okay, so in the past, up until recently, we've used like 30%. Your mortgage payment is going to be about 30% of your income, okay, of your monthly. So that's what I usually say. Figure it out and figure out, do you have 30% to pay towards a mortgage?
Okay.
And is that comfortable for you if you do? Okay. Here's the slide I'll show you, Alexia. And this is why this number is changing and why we're running into these issues right now is because we're at 34% of your income
Okay.
versus that 30% where we like to be. Okay. So if you can see this 30 line, that's what we've used forever because that's been the average. Now we've jumped to 34. We went down, but we're back up at 34 again. Okay.
Okay.
So I'd show them this and say, yeah, and currently we're looking at 34% of your monthly is going to go towards your mortgage and mortgage payment. Okay. So do that budget. See if when you have all your expenses and this mortgage rate at 34%, does it now feel comfortable for you to be able to purchase? Does that fit within your budget?
Got it.
Does that help, Alexia?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think like hearing if they are willing to share and you sit down, I guess I didn't know. Are you telling them they need to stop going to Starbucks on 3 days a week? They need to cut back to 2 days a week. Like, are you having those conversations or are you keeping it just from as broad as 30%, 34%, if it fits, great? Or are you going into the minute of like, here's what I would be doing?
Right. That depends on the client. So I have absolutely had people say, hey, if we were willing to bring you our monthly budget, would you help us? Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Right. Let's look at what are the things you're not making money on that you may be able to sacrifice, right? Do you make money on your Starbucks? And again, it's all asking questions, right? So I'm never going to say to them, you should stop buying Starbucks.
Yeah.
Right. But I would say, is Starbucks making you any money? Is what you're spending here making you any money? What are your absolute have tos? What can you not do without?
Yeah.
Is the mortgage one of them?
Okay.
Right. And then where?
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, totally depends on the client. But yes, I have absolutely done that. And with sellers, sometimes you got to get that nitty gritty too. If they trust you, if, you're the right person for that.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great questions. You're welcome. Who else?
Hey, Julie.
Hi, Jessica.
I just realized it says Corey and Jessica Carter.
That's all right. I know who you are.
My neighbor across the street just listed their house. It's probably been on for almost 3 weeks now. And they've only had one showing and no interest at all. And so she asked my advice, but obviously they already have a realtor. And so I told her I'd be happy to share my thoughts, but then so I scheduled like a time to meet with her on Wednesday, but I'm like, I don't know if I should do that. I
Okay.
don't know how
So
how
great
that
question.
works.
All right. This is such a beautiful question. So number one, if they reach out to you, you can do whatever you want.
Mhm.
Okay. So you can't reach out to them and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about your listing. Right. But they can
Yeah.
say, hey, can you give us advice?
Mhm.
Right. And let's meet and sit down and talk about it. Right. Or can you give us
Mhm.
advice? And then the best thing is to meet. So yes, you're doing
Yeah.
the right thing there. That's absolutely fine. What I would continue to go back to is, well, you want to create doubt that their agent is the right agent. Okay. So the questions around creating doubt are going to be, great. So what's your agent giving you weekly on what's happening in
Mhm.
the market?
Yeah.
What's your agent saying you need to do with the price?
Mhm.
What's your agent recommending? What they tell you to do as far as getting it ready, as far as, so just
I
keep
see.
going back, and then you'll be able to tell when you're there, most likely. Can
Mhm.
you help them or no?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Are there things you can do differently to help them sell it? And then that's where I'd stay. And I'd say, unfortunately, I can't, your agent has your full picture, right?
Mhm.
And they have their own way to guide and, put you in this market. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, since I don't know their strategy for you, I'm not going to say
Mhm.
anything about what they're doing. What
Yeah.
I can tell you is what I would do to get your house sold.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
Okay.
And so then I just, maybe ask some questions around what their agent is doing, and then say, okay, well, now I can tell you what I do.
Okay.
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 And just stay in that space. But yeah,
Super helpful.
that's going to happen a lot to you guys too, because
Yeah.
houses are sitting.
Yeah.
And
Right.
everyone's
Right.
heard they sell so fast. They sell so fast. Some markets are
Yeah.
selling so fast still.
Mhm.
And so therefore, right, some of them
Yeah.
we're going to ask around to other agents.
Okay. Perfect.
Great
Thank you
question.
so much, Julie.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yes, you guys too. And gang,
Thank
I'm
you.
going to have to shut us off. I would stay for hours with all of you if I could, but I have other people right after you. So I will see you next week. Bring questions. Okay, bring question next week. We'll solve all those. I'll have everything up in the link tree this afternoon, and then we'll move on to something else next week.
Thanks,
Bye,
Julie.
gang. You're
Julie.
welcome.